Okay, shall we introduce the interview?
All right, we had an absolutely great chat with the guys from Amiensus. I had a feeling we could have gone on most of the evening.
Well, we went on very fine.
um, Heavy editing here, for those of you who didn't want our repetitious
Hmm.
yammering,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of great information about this band and about Reclamations 1 and 2, which 2 will be coming soon. Can't wait.
We already have two.
Here's our interview. Check it out. What great guys.
Let me make sure I'm saying the name right. Is the name of the band Amiensus? How do you say it? Let
Yep.
me make
Yep.
sure I get it.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll tell you
Amiensus.
a little story. We did this. There's a band with David Vincent, like a super group that,
Okay, yeah.
put out a couple albums, and we reviewed their latest album, and we were calling them Vlitmas.
Because it started with a V, to be fair.
Yeah.
And we did this long review of it and everything, talked about how great he was in Morbid Angel and blah blah blah.
Mhm.
And then the PR guy comes in and says, it's Ultimus. We're like, oops.
Ooh.
So it had like the black
It
black
had
metal
the
V.
yeah, it was like
Yeah.
the cult V. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh well, what are you gonna do?
That's not on you. He's a death metal guy. That shouldn't factor
Yeah, I
in.
mean, I
Yeah.
was like, refunds in the back. What do you want?
Yeah.
No, I think we said it like 3 times during the review too. I was like,
So
great.
now we ask,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's
You never
worth it
know.
asking.
Well, speaking of the name, where did the name come from? What were some of the names you considered, and why did you choose this one?
So I probably have to answer that one because Todd started right after we released our first album.
Mhm.
So back in like 2013 is when Todd joined, and I've been in the band since it started, kind of thing. To be honest, I don't think I have a really good story anymore about it. It's been like 14 years since we originally started playing music, and I was like 18 then,
Yeah.
or 19 when we released our first EP. And our original name from high school in our band was called The Last. So like our first 3-track real shitty EP is called The Last EP because we were kind of saying goodbye to that. And so it was like the last, like, because it was also that band's as the last. It was our songs, basically songs that we've never played as Amiensis live. Um, and I don't think anybody in the band besides probably me and Alec still can remember how to play, even vaguely. But anyway, I swear that the Amiens, now I know. I didn't learn for a couple of years after we originally started the band and like had the logo drawn and all that from Christophe, but that Amois, France, that's how you pronounce Amiens technically. Amois, France is a real place and it has a historical cathedral there. It was the site of the first tank battle during World War One. So there's all these cool actual historical stuff that I wish was actually in the back of my mind that like
Right.
now sometimes I'll tell that story, but realistically, I feel like I was looking on Wikipedia at like names of Roman legions, and there was one that was like Amiensis, and I have no idea phonetically if that's how it was even pronounced, and I've never been able to find it on any Wikipedia page since 2010.
Gotcha.
But essentially that's where the name came from, and we've stuck with it. And most of the time, when people are like, "How do you say it?" and I just say, whatever you want. It's cool.
Right.
It's not a real word.
So you can't find it again, so it's kind of like a Mandela effect,
Yeah,
essentially. Okay.
It's good though, because if you Google it, you're the only thing that comes up.
That's
exactly.
true.
Yeah, I mean, and you could have done a lot worse picking it when you're 18, I mean, you could be stuck with something horrible.
Yeah.
Well, that clears up my question because I was like, it says it's the last EP, but it wasn't. So that's a good answer to that one.
Yep.
Yeah.
I did notice that all of your full lengths end in shun.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, after like restoration wasn't picked with any like following concept in mind, but when we
Mhm.
released our the restoration, and depending on what website you look on, either 12/31/12 or 1/1/13. Technically we released it at midnight, so like technically it's January, but I think Bandcamp says it's December 31st. Anyway, after that one is when we kind of like I come up with the concept of like what the second album was supposed to be, and that's when we started to pick the shun, the suffix of having a shun. So I mean it's like not always like the TION like reclamation, but like or it's restoration, ascension, abreaction, and reclamation.
Yeah, we were talking to John McEntee from Incantation about that, about all the
Mhm.
great shuns from New York, like Suffocation and
Yeah, yeah.
Immolation and all. And I mentioned, what's the one from, Dissection.
Oh, yep.
And
Mhm.
he goes, that's just those fuckers ripping us off.
Yeah.
Oh, I won't throw shade at too many people right now, but we can later.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh,
Yeah, it was the great debate was, is mortician actually a shun? Because it's really not spelled that way. We don't know.
we're just
Oh,
really close. And they're part of the New York,
Yeah.
triumvirate or whatever, so.
Mhm.
So I'm guessing since this is part one, there will be at least a part two. How far out did you plan the concept so far?
the con. Hmm,
Well, I mean, I would say that it's
ahead,
not
Todd.
so much a concept, just as we had, 90 minutes of material. So it's just kind of the splitting up of that material to allow, the previous label that we were on, but now the new label on, to just be able to split it financially to not have to front, a double LP money wise right away.
Yeah,
Because we were trying to make it work with a previous label they were kind enough that we released a re it's just a remaster of All Paths
remix
Lead
and
to
master.
Death. Oh, is it remixed and mastered?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. And so we were trying to make it work with them because they weren't as large of a label as M Theory. And so they were kind enough to let us out of the contract. But at that point I think we'd talked with M Theory about that, and I think that's the way they chose to go, was to split it into two parts just to be able to have, pre-order money coming in to make everything more affordable.
Exactly. Yeah, that and I mean there was some thought that like dropping 90 minutes of music and then like
No.
nobody hearing the back half of this album kind of could be kind of stupid, I guess. Like I've mentioned a little bit previously sometimes when talking about this that I just felt that in particular the way that people listen to music, but not this genre. I mean, whatever genre we are, genres that we fit into, I guess people do like full-length albums usually, but I mean, music listening in general is mostly over streaming for the most
Yeah.
part. People buy the more digital albums still than they buy the actual physicals, even though they're buying the digital, which love that. Thank you. Instead of just streaming it. But because of that, we were like, well, I want people to hear those tracks because like generally you release something on streaming and like the first three tracks are the ones people are going to listen to and decide if they're going to listen to the rest or the first two even at
Mhm.
max. So we broke it up at a spot where it was like, all right, well, part two is gonna fucking kick people in the face. So I'm excited for that.
That's cool.
I definitely
I
get
do.
that.
I do agree with you. This genre, well, really just extreme music in general, people tend to hang in there for the full.
Hmm.
They'll do all 110 minutes of Deathspell Omega.
Yep.
Mhm. Yep.
So
Yeah, I was surprised at my Spotify wrap up. It said that I'm a full album listener, and
Hmm.
I was like, oh, I
Oh.
guess I am. I guess
Yeah.
people don't
Yeah.
always do that.
yes, there's Billie Eilish fuckers that are doing that single stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I was debating releasing singles for like a whole year straight until like the album, like doing the sleep token where you don't really ever release
Oh, right.
an
Yeah.
album till like the full thing's out in a single.
Mhm.
But I was like, nah, I feel like that would just antagonize people in this
Yeah.
music.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so big. We couldn't find at first a production credit for the album, but then on your Facebook page it mentions Antoine Dufour. Did he do the whole thing or just parts of it? And how did you come to work with him?
'Cause I really like the production a
Yeah.
lot. Yeah.
So Antoine did the final track on part one, which was the more acoustic based song called Transcendence Through Grief. He did the mixing and mastering on that one, or sorry, just the mixing. He was mastered by the guy who mixed the other 14 and mastered the other 14 song or 15 songs in total, Spencer Fox. And Spencer runs a studio in Madison, Wisconsin, which is a few hours from us, east of us. Yeah.
Mhm.
And Spencer and I were in a band called Soul Shade together for the last couple of years. So Spencer was a bandmate, and he's also he actually did the remix of All Paths Lead to Death a few years ago, and that was kind of our like test to see. He'd never done like he does a lot of extreme metal, but he'd never done like more kind of blackened influenced, more straightforward like death metal, melodic death metal influenced type of music. He'd done more metalcore deathcore type of stuff. I mean,
Mhm.
he'd done like a lot of singer-songwriter stuff too, so I knew he was going to be pulling it out, and he'd mixed also one of my grunge band's albums as well, and that turned out awesome. So I was
Mhm.
pretty confident in like the clean singing, and the drums would sound awesome. And then
Yeah.
we were like, hey, just take this 30-minute straightforward 5-song EP and make it sound heavier than the first version of it. And he did awesome.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
we put him to work for like 6 months straight trying to mix fucking 14 of the 15 songs and mastering
Mhm.
all 15.
Yeah. Well, and Antoine had played already a part in Abe Reaction. He was the one who had mixed and mastered that. So
Yep.
this time around, it was just nice to be able to get him, playing on something too.
Yep.
The bass lines are so clear,
Oh,
and
yeah.
sometimes that gets lost.
Yeah.
Was that something that you wanted to happen, that you specifically said, this can't be muddy, because it's absolutely beautiful?
Speaking as a bass player, yeah, I mean, I always want that. There's been, I think, at least one, if not some other CDs that I've been involved with where it's just I couldn't hear anything that I played. So, but I think, coming from with my taste of different bands that have the bass mixed in well, like Beyond Creation and Cynic and some of those, prog
Yeah.
bands that have
Mhm.
it more mixed in, although those guys were kind of using more fretless for the most part. But yeah, it was just really nice to hear the parts a lot better. And Spencer is a bass player, is a guitar and bass player, but
Yeah.
he has a feeling for making sure that's included too. And I think just everyone, we just kind of said just bump it up, a little
Yeah, it's
bit this
nice.
time. Yeah.
It's nice because we get a lot of, you hear a lot of extreme metal where there's 96 guitar tracks and that just eats all the dynamic range and you don't get to hear any of the bass, So it's,
Mhm.
it's
Well,
nice to have some room in there the way they used to do it in the bitchin' era,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, and sometimes too, it's a matter of like different genres where people are just playing the guitar, note for note on the bass as well.
Yeah, yeah.
And definitely I tried to create a little extra melodic sense too, to not just always be backing that. Obviously, I think there's a common fallback on playing some of the root stuff for kind of heavier parts, just because it
Right.
is, very effective for that. But to otherwise just make it a little bit more melodic.
I always like it when it's like, oh, was that a bass solo?
Yeah.
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 It's weird to be in a genre at the same time where having a good bass player like Todd, or an excellent bass player like Todd,
Thank you.
is like a rare moment that somebody always notices every time we put out music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're like, what the fuck are y'all doing? Like,
Yeah.
get yourself a Todd.
Yeah.
What can I say?
So- I love the cover art for this one. It
Mhm.
really fits like the power of the songs. It seems like the blue, black, and white scheme has been similar for the last 3 full lengths. But the first one was just black and white. Was there a reason you kind of shifted colors, or did you change artists? Because this is really powerful. Looks almost medieval.
Mhm.
The first one does have blue in it too. In
Blue,
fact,
yeah.
there's even, if you blow up the original image, there's even some pink in it.
Okay.
We did it before Sunbather.
Okay. Yeah. But you didn't get that sunbather money though. That's the thing.
No, hell
No.
no. Hell no, we didn't. Yeah, no, the colors have been a constant like theme on purpose for sure. I actually have like the original painting on the wall behind me of Abe Reaction, which was like a pour over painting on a piece of like a 12 by 12 wood square basically. So, and then you take a torch to it and dry it with acrylic and stuff. Yeah, that's so that was the last album. And then this time we were like, look, if we're gonna put out 90 minutes of music, we need to find a really fucking good artist to do something instead of having me do some kind of painting that like I'm not an artist in that way, but
Mhm.
my sister-in-law is. So she was like, all right, well, I'll show you how to do it. So we've known of Arya for a few years. Seeing some of our friends previously have worked with her and stuff, and so we messaged her last summer and we're like, hey, we have this massive project and we need somebody who's amazing at creating art like you to capture what we're doing. And basically we talked about the concepts of some of the songs, some of the like the lyrics and the like some of the theories and stuff that we put into the lyrics, and let her just do her thing.
Mhm.
I didn't want to like lead her on and like tell her like we need images of this.
Yeah,
I'm
just
not
total
into like
freedom.
yeah, like I'm not into telling artists what to do in general. I'd rather they do their thing and let them run that course. And of
Mhm.
course she did really fucking awesome. Excited because the second cover is also really fucking good too. So
Mhm. And I thought what was so unique working with her too was, and I thought it was really cool, was she was taking, all the information that we'd put into the music, just the sounds and the lyrics and everything, and kind of weaved it into her own story as the starting point. So she would send us every once in a while, a paragraph or two saying, this is what I'm thinking of, and like what's the story behind it. And so that's why the first and the second cover pair together, was the fawn person creature centaur that she had created, was uh, part one was one part and part two was another part of the story of that character.
exactly.
Yeah, it's neat too because to me it's like the light and the heavy kind of battling, and that's kind of like your music. So
Exactly.
Yeah.
really fit well.
Exactly.
So the definition of reclamation is the process of claiming something back or righting a wrong. So you guys might have different answers to this, but if you had unlimited power and funds, what in this country or the world would you do first
Limited funds.
if you could right a wrong?
Oh, that would be probably solving hunger. I mean, it wouldn't take more than just distribution, really, at this point. We produce enough food to feed everybody in the world more than once over. So probably eliminating hunger in the world.
Yeah. Well,
I feel
and I
like
mean,
a
if you got
magic.
that covered, I guess I would say probably war. It's been really hard to recently, just with the various wars going on in the world right now, to just see so much of the imagery brought straight to you, that didn't really exist before the social media, internet age.
Hmm.
So that's always harrowing to see, just how what gruesome things people can do to each other. So I think that would probably be my end then if Jim already has world hunger covered.
Is it fair to call you guys a Minnesota-based band or?
Yep. Yeah. Four
Yeah.
four out of five of us are in Minnesota.
Okay.
Yeah, Metal Archives has like 8 cities listed. I was like, what are
Yeah.
they doing?
That was from, the Restoration era, I think, right?
Yeah, Restoration Ascension era, we were a little bit spread out because some of us were in college and stuff at the time. And back then, when Zach was in the band until from 2010 to 2017, Zach was living in Spokane, and then he lived in Chicago. I lived in Central Illinois and Minnesota. Todd's been mostly in the cities, Minneapolis,
Yeah.
St. Paul area.
Yep.
Um,
Twin Cities. Yep.
our drummer Chris, who currently is the one who's not in Minnesota, lives in Green Bay. He was in college in Minnesota, which is how we know him. And then he moved back to Green Bay. And then our current other guitar player besides Alec, Kelsey, is from Green Bay, but he moved to Minnesota.
Okay.
Mhm.
Lots of
What's
cheeseheads.
what's the
Mm-hmm.
what's the metal scene like in Minneapolis, St. Paul area? Is it pretty healthy or?
Yeah, I think that'd be my
Yeah,
question
I live
as
in Rochester.
you're an hour and a
Oh,
half away.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say it's healthy. Yeah, there's a lot of killer bands. Grindcore wise, Deterioration is fantastic. Death metal wise, kind of the disso death kind of stuff. We have Sunless, Nothingness, Suffering Hour.
Hmm.
Um, Black metal wise, Panopticon. Is Panopticon still based here?
Yeah, Austin's up in Ely now.
Okay, I couldn't remember if
He
he
moved
like.
Hammerheart up to all the way up
yeah,
to Ely.
Nothingness is a great band. We
Yeah,
reviewed them on the show not that long ago.
Yeah.
yeah. I actually went to high school with their I think current bass player is what
Oh,
he's playing right now. Um, yeah, Obsequii,
Ashbringer, Oak
Ashbringer,
Pantheon.
Majesties. Is that what it's called?
Yep.
Carl's.
Yeah.
Okay.
Carl's. Yep.
Um, yeah, there's just a lot of, I mean, and it's really cool too. I think there's just a big wave of younger generation bands coming out right now too. I'm just seeing kids that are, 16 to 20 that are just ripping like thrash stuff. I mean, Begravement, I think, has been getting a lot of
Yeah. Necrotisk and
attention.
Begravement.
Yeah. I think is it Visceral Reaction?
Yep.
Is that the
Or is
one
it?
with one sec, let me see. Well, anyways, Yeah, there's just a lot of great bands here.
Yeah,
That's
I'm more
great.
familiar with the like metalcore, deathcore e scene as well, because I grown up playing in other bands, doing that stuff as well, and that's still a pretty healthy scene, but
Yeah.
it's mostly not kids anymore, and
Yeah.
it's now the kids are doing like the thrash and the black and the death stuff,
Mm.
which is I'm jealous because I'm like, growing up I was the dude playing in black metal mostly, and
Yeah.
like Amiensus was more successful than my other bands, and which I wasn't mad about, but like everybody knew me as the black metal dude
Hmm.
in the metalcore scene.
Yeah. Well, and I think in that scene too, I mean, we had after the burial started here,
hmm
and then in
Yep.
more just recent active bands, Reflections, and By the Thousands,
Yep.
some of those guys. So
Yep.
I liked on this album how you broke things up like A and B, which seemed to be something different. Is there a significance why you broke it up like that?
In
for
terms
that,
of the record or just the part one and part two?
Yeah, because it says side A and then it lists track and then side B.
mm,
Uh
that's
um
probably for the physical record part, and then the part one,
yep.
part two. Hmm.
Yeah, that was on the label, that wasn't on us.
Okay.
I didn't make any decisions on that.
I was
Was
gonna
that
say,
the spine thing, or Jim, or
No, it's
oh,
just
okay.
on the record. I think side A and side B. I don't think I have a record somewhere. No, I don't. Never mind. They're downstairs.
I just couldn't remember if there was a misprint on the spine of something or not, or that might have been a different release.
yeah, it's listed that way, like broken up. I was gonna say you guys had that in like Health did the same thing, but they actually did it
Mm,
on purpose.
Yeah.
yeah. Is it?
Was the writing process the same for Reclamation as it was for the previous album for was it Ab Reaction? Or was anything different about the way you
Uh,
approached it?
it was a little different. Like Abe Reaction was written a little bit more isolated. We didn't get together and actually like write stuff together on Abe Reaction as much as we did with Reclamation.
Mhm.
And you'll see a little bit more collaboration in part two than you did in part one, where a lot of the songs have and I'm not like trying to take credit and say like this is me, but just like part one was predominantly me singing and screaming, except for on like Senses Amplified, the fourth track. The rest of the tracks were mostly me. And then part two, it's like four different vocalists, probably four. I think there's maybe four or five total.
Wow.
Mhm.
Yeah, five total vocalists on part. And I don't do predominantly the vocals on, I think, on any track at all. Like it's split
Mhm.
up pretty evenly, at least between three people per song almost. So, uh, yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, there was a lot more collaboration and like getting together. Like it wasn't like the full band could get together and do stuff a lot, but it was usually like in groups of 3 to 4 of us over actually sitting here in this office that I'm in. Todd would come down. We'd track some bass lines. He'd write some bass lines. We'd be actually just sitting here together like we are talking about the guitar parts and the
Yeah.
bass lines over like usually Facebook and stuff, video. And other than that, we also went out to track the drums to Green Bay to be with Chris for an entire week while we tracked all the drums and stuff. So that was
Mhm.
different because Abe Reaction, Chris just tracked the drums in his basement alone, and this time we went to his bandmate's studio and tracked them all together with the whole
Wow.
band. So there was definitely a lot more getting together,
Mhm.
going over riffs. There's also more songwriters. Like we kind of have two pseudo members that are deeply involved on both parts of Reclamation this time. So Aaron, who was originally our like kind of keyboard player on our first EP, and then from there he became kind of a more guitar player and clean vocalist, and he's been on everything we've ever done. He does mostly acoustic guitar stuff. But he was on part one with Transcendence Through Grief. That was mostly him and Kelsey. And then Joe, who was on our first two full-length albums, Restoration and Ascension, is heavily featured on part two, but he also
Mhm.
was on a little bit of track one on part one called Blink of the Moment. So
Mhm.
yeah, couple extra songwriters that hadn't been. Aaron's always been involved. Joe hadn't been involved for a few years, and a lot more actually getting together and sitting together in a room
Mhm.
and recording stuff. Even though like for the most part we still have the same process of writing out like a full song. One of us would write like basically all the bare bone, here's the rhythm, here's the leads, and then we'd all get together and kind of like go over like the parts in a group and change stuff. And that was way more fun. That's the
Mhm.
fun part.
would
That's
think
the fun part
so.
about being in a band, honestly.
Yeah.
Like
It
that's the
sounds
best
better
part.
than just trading files, you know. It
Yeah,
sounds
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's heavily factored in for us. It's just trading files. And I'd say for this album too, you know, Chris stepped up and wanted to get involved with the keys as well.
Yep.
So that was some of his
It's great.
you know, creations there.
Yeah. Chris had never done a piece before.
Accompaniments. That's what I was trying to think
Mhm.
of. So, but yeah, I think other than that, whatever besides what Jim covered, I think that's mostly, you know, the differences.
I'm getting really excited about part 2 based on what you're telling me. Sounds really awesome.
Yeah.
I got you. After this, I'll email it to you.
Okay, great. Great.
Yeah.
I really loved that you added like such softer acoustic parts and the clean vocals, because when the heavy comes back, it just hits you in the face
Mhm.
that much
Yeah.
harder. Was that inspired by anything, or was it just a natural evolution?
That's always been our thing. I think we lacked a little bit of that on our last full-length record, and then definitely All Paths was not meant to be that way. It was supposed to be just a heavy album.
Mhm.
We still had a little bit of that on the last album, but like not nearly as dynamic. And I know going into this record, like we wanted to return to having that level of dynamic that we've had on our first 2 full-length records, especially. I don't know, Todd, what do you feel?
Yeah. Sorry, that just made me think of the dub part in
What evil?
one of the What Evil, yeah, Lay
Yeah.
Dormant. Yeah, I mean, I think I'd say it's always involved in terms of bringing in what influences, you know, us as a band, as individually members. And I think as far as I know, Opeth has been, you know, kind of a big inspiration to most of us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think pulling from some of bands like Opeth, and different bands that just kind of do that melding of very beautiful acoustic soundscapey kind of tracks along with just some heavy stuff. I mean, Opeth just has songs that are, you know, like E standard or just D standard that are just heavier than some people playing in A, you know, A or G or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
remember the early 2000s. It was like they could do no wrong, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We'll try not to get into their later stuff.
Yeah. We had a conversation once about this, and
I wasn't gonna say anything, but it's so
Yeah.
funny you guys. Yeah.
Well, we had an interview last week where we got into it a little bit. Yeah.
yeah,
Not into it. We discussed it a little bit. We weren't fighting each other into it.
we were asked about our favorite Opeth albums, and it's probably better if we don't mention which ones are our favorite.
I think
Okay.
it was just you that offered up yours. I don't think I even said
Okay.
anything.
My opinion is it's probably the controversial one, but I'll leave it out for now.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, I like your post. I think it's on Instagram, where it's like, if you like Opeth, if you like Will to Run. I thought that was really great.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, a guy on YouTube who has been doing these like Twitch reviews as well. He tagged us in that one, and I think he reviewed Restoration and Ascension back in January because it had been
Yeah.
requested on his Twitch channel.
Was that the
And-
PTB Empire
Yep.
fella?
Yeah,
I forget his
PTB
name right
Empire.
now. Yeah.
I'm not going to pronounce his name right, so I'm not going to say it. It starts with a G, but it sounds like a slur, so I can't say it on.
Okay.
on here.
I don't
But he's a cool dude. He tagged us in that one and asked us to be a collaborator on it, and I was like, yeah, why not? I mean, I don't mind being lumped in with those bands.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think this is the first time around I've seen Will to Ruin kind of comparisons, and I think I read in a review or two besides you know, that fellow mentioning that about that recently, which reminds me just that I have to revisit their material.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we
They're a little more swashbuckly than
Yeah.
you guys.
Yep.
There's a little bit of pirate element, but yeah, no,
Gotcha.
it's not far off at all.
Well, one of
talked
our I was gonna say one of our members did that. You talked to Cody from Will to Run?
Yeah,
yeah.
I think
he's
it's
been on the show.
season 1.
Okay.
But yeah, we talked to him about chicken sandwiches for quite a while. But
And
they
video game
yeah, but they
soundtracks.
really got into
Oh.
the video game soundtrack thing. I
Mm,
mean, that
yep.
might be an avenue for you, especially with some of the the sun and the moon would be just
Yeah.
an awesome backdrop for something.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That was honestly like one of my family members who isn't a metalhead listened to that one and initially sent me like right off the bat was like, this sounds like it should be in a video game like Fallout.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I sat down and made my mom listen to that one.
Did you?
Yeah, I was like, you're gonna have to listen to one song, so I think it's just gonna be this to start
Yep.
with. You can revisit it later if you
Yeah.
want.
There is a song on part 2. So Alec, our guitar player, initially did a lot of pretty crazy orchestration on Ascension, and has kind of backed off wanting to do that level of production on orchestrated stuff. Though we do it live, he usually makes some pretty crazy cool stuff for the live performances and of the songs. But there's a there's a song on part 2 where I can specifically say, I guess I don't, it's not ruining it for anybody, but like it's specifically inspired by Ghost of Tsushima.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, and it's one of the singles that we're gonna release. So
Yeah, did that just come out on PC like today?
did
I
it?
think they just ported it to PC. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Oh,
Yeah,
Okay, let me look
that's,
at Steam really quick.
I really liked in the sun and the moon the way it almost sounds like it sounded to me like monks chanting. It even sounded like a violin at some points in there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
How did you get that kind of monkey? Whoa.
Well, I wrote the vocals with Aaron, who again pseudo member still. He's not like in the live band, but still writes with us every record. Aaron and I have been best friends since we met at 14. We went to college together. We were in choir together. And then the female vocalist was actually in choir with us back in college as well. And her sister was on one of our other records who was also in choir with us. So it was kind of written between 3 choir kids, basically. So I kind of came up with the parts with Aaron and then had her come in and perform them with Aaron mostly. I barely sang on that track. I think there's only 1 or 2 lines of me in total, basically. But yeah, it was supposed to kind of sound like that. So we
Awesome.
like a lot of the like 3-part harmonies. I can say that.
So for the track Reverie, it almost, when reading the lyrics, sounded like Ithaca's flying too close to the sun. Was that inspired by some mythology or
Icarus.
Icarus?
Yes,
What did I
yep.
say?
Flight of Icarus. Come on.
Don't mind me.
Anyway.
So yeah,
sorry.
it was inspired by that. Because there was a track. So that's one of the songs that I was the main writer on, and basically there's track 2 on Abe Reaction is called Divinity. And the lyrics were specifically about that on Divinity. And so I was wanting to make another song like Divinity, in some ways, as like not a successor, but like I call it the companion song. So that is the one that I came up with for this record to sound kind of like that. And so yeah, lyrically it was supposed to kind of coincide as a companion to Divinity, which was the second track on Abe Reaction.
Love it.
Very cool.
Another one of our favorites was Senses Amplified. I love the idea of like nature's frequency and how we can tap into them. We've also been watching this 3-body problem, which actually made me think of that.
Ooh.
Woo!
Yeah.
But what does the emerald hue refer to? That when you're talking about the emerald hue, is that like life itself? I was like trying to get my hands around that one.
So Chris mainly wrote those lyrics, our drummer. And I just tacked on in parts to make things fit. And in my reference of it, it was the Northern Lights.
Ah.
So, because we are the North Star State over here.
Mhm.
We just had a huge Northern Lights show up here. I mean, I don't know if you guys were able to see them last week too, but the Northern Lights were pretty far.
We're in
here.
Baltimore. It didn't.
Mm.
You would have been way out in the country probably.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I was busy watching the Timberwolves lose a basketball game, so
Yeah.
I made the wrong decision there.
It's
Yeah,
all
we're
good.
big city hipsters here.
No.
Oh, my one of my sisters lives in Edgewood.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, my
Yeah,
family's
that's
from
just-
PA kind of area, or at
Okay.
least they live there. They're not all from there really, but
Edgewood's about what 20, about 25 miles north of the city. Yeah, yeah, it's up
Yeah.
there. But yes, they have a big proving ground up there. Yeah, where they make chemical weapons.
Yeah.
Hmm. Which
Uh,
company is that?
Yeah.
Like
I don't know.
Raytheon or
No,
something?
no, it's that's where that's actually where Frank Zappa's father was employed,
Hmm. Okay.
Oh.
and um, he had to get out of Maryland because he was allergic to the
Everything.
climate or something, and so he
Mhm.
hated. We have a statue of him in Baltimore, but he hated
Oh,
living
okay,
here.
yeah.
So it's very interesting.
Hmm.
That's
Yeah.
great.
You gotta love that about Baltimore. We'll claim you if you were
We'll
born here,
claim
like
you.
Babe
Yeah.
Ruth,
Right, whether you
or
wanted to
if
be
you
here. or
died
not.
here like Edgar Allan Poe. You're like,
We're-
where's
we're-
the football team after you? Goddamn it!
We're
That's it.
we're
Mhm.
desperate. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, speaking of weapons, my other favorite, I love Vermilion Fog of War. And we were talking about all the horrible acts people do to each other. What can we do to stop, get out of this mindset of like Vikings and invading each other and all this? I can't believe this is still going on in this century.
Mhm.
Yep.
What's it going to take to stop that? And just, be all me too, how can we have that and then people invading people?
Mhm.
That's
Well-
a pretty large moral question, Todd, if you want to answer.
I mean, I just say it's about, how it's all about money. I mean, it's about profiting, can we take your oil? Can we, we start a war, we get to make guns and bombs, and we get to, you see the stocks all jump up on all the military complex companies. But yeah, I'd say it's largely, I mean, it's either about money or land, and as long as, people want to take other things of others people's, I mean, I'd say it's a, inherently dealing with greed, and so, and some of the economic systems too, just really want to squeeze every penny out of the bottom line. So
Yeah,
yeah.
there's a surprising rise of nationalism as well again in the last 15 years or so. That's
Mhm.
becoming somewhat bad overall in both Europe and the Western, or I mean, the Western world and other places as well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, we play a game on the show because we don't want to get too heavy with the politics.
Yeah, we tried to keep it a little tame there.
Exactly right. Yeah. So the game
Yeah.
is called Blaspheming Monikers. Okay. Here's how it works. So I have 5 or 6 band names in front of me from the Metal Archives. One of them I made up.
Mm.
So you guys are going to take turns guessing which one I made up until we either run out of bands or you get it right.
Oh
So,
boy.
so here we go.
Todd, you're up.
Here are the choices. Number 1, Skull Archer. Number 2, DJ Skull Vomit. Number 3, Skull Patrol. Number 4, Moss Upon the Skull. Number 5, Skull Battalion. And number 6, Anonymous Skull. So who wants to
Wow,
go?
people are getting a lot of use out of that word.
Yeah.
Oh, it's like pages and pages. And
Yeah, what was the first one again?
Skull Archer.
It was Skull Archer. Hmm. Do you have any thoughts?
Skull
James?
Archer, yeah, Skull Archer is like reminds me of like the Baldur's Gate PlayStation games or like Diablo where there's actually archers that are just skeleton archers. But
So you think that
why
one
wouldn't it
might
be
be
like
real?
skeleton archer? Yeah. What was the second one?
I'll go through them again. All right. So Skull Archer, DJ Skull Vomit, Skull Patrol, Moss Upon the Skull, Skull Battalion, and Anonymous Skull.
I'm leaning towards Skull Patrol just because it sounds like you have children and might have been watching Paw Patrol when you made that up.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
no.
I mean, was that your
They're from
official
New
guess,
Zealand.
James? Okay.
They're from New Zealand and they have 2 LPs. They're thrash. So Skull Patrol's
okay.
real.
Oh
was
my God.
I was gonna say maybe James. The DJ Skull Vomit seems like not a. I mean, that sounds like a DJ name.
Yeah, and Metal
electronic.
Yeah, Metal Archives wouldn't let that probably on there.
Metal Archives hates. Yeah.
It's probably AI anyway.
No, it's real. DJ Skull Vomit is
Okay.
from Portland. It's something called breakcore, which I don't really know
Oh,
what that
okay.
is.
Yeah, I know
And
what that
they
is.
have one full length and a ton of splits. So,
Huh. Okay.
so
Yeah,
that
that's good.
leaves Skull Archer, Moss Upon the Skull, Skull Battalion, and Anonymous Skull.
So I would feel James either Anonymous Skull or the Skull Archer, I feel
Yeah.
like, but
That same. I would narrow it down to either. You pick.
um let's go Skull Archer.
Texas band thrash, one
Yeah.
full length and 3 EPs.
Okay.
I
Oh
think
my
they're from
god.
Fort Worth. Yeah. No, the
Okay.
one I made up was Skull Battalion. That's not real.
Okay.
Oh
That
damn.
one is
Actually,
like one
the
of the
band-
most legitimately sounding ones.
Yeah.
Actually, the band called Moss Upon the Skull is really good. They're from Belgium and they play
Okay.
really good tight thrash. So they're
I was
actually
gonna say
really good.
that's the only one that sounded familiar, but Skull
Yeah.
Battalion literally sounded like any thrash band
I know.
Yeah.
ever.
I've gotten
There's
better. I've gotten better over time with this game. So
Yeah.
someone independently of your knowledge is creating that band right now.
Yeah, exactly.
well, that's funny
they're
that
just
you
gonna be
say that
pissed.
because when we interviewed John from Incantation,
Mhm.
he said the ultimate hipster thing would be to create like back patches for bands that don't exist.
No, yeah.
And no one knows this band because it's all mine. So
Yeah, I
Oh my
think
god.
James and I occasionally dabble with a little Korean pop music, and I've definitely seen some of the outfits and music videos are they're pulling the style to be kind of fashionable. And it's just,
yeah.
made up bands on some of their shirts. And
I think it totally fits the hipster AI mindset. I
yeah.
wanted, this style of music, but I didn't like this era, so I want it to be this
Mhm.
era. But I wanted this singer for it, and now it's all mine. And
Yeah.
Yep.
that's where we're headed. Sadly, it seems.
Yeah.
So much for just going to how great is fucking Kill 'Em All, dude?
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, we're just gonna have people like AI combining, like, give me, Michael Ackerfeld's guitars and James Hetfield
Yeah,
guitars, and
there you go, right. But I
we're
want a
just gonna
female singer, and I want that. What was the band you mentioned? The Sleep Token vocal style. Got to have that.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. No, it's a world gone mad. I know.
I keep trying to get into Sleep Token, but like he's not a bad singer at all, but he just sounds like he's got a mouthful of marbles.
Yeah, it's like they went really poppy with the vocals.
Yeah. And I'm okay with that. I love poppy vocals. I think I write poppy vocals most of the time. But something just doesn't mesh to me. I'm like every time I listen to them, I'm like, I'm just gonna go listen to Catatonia.
Yeah. I think he said that last interview too.
I know, yeah. I'm
Yeah.
like Dead End Kings is better.
Yeah.
Is it the costumes? Because Portal has costumes. Can't we listen to
Yeah.
that? I mean, come on.
Yeah, the Portal had the giant clock. Was that who had the giant clock costume? Yeah.
Portal's they're from they're the was it Australian band
Australian, I think, yeah.
they're the big black, like you don't know what the hell they are. Like some kind of big black monster costume.
Yeah. Just
Oh,
like
I-
hyper dissonant death metal.
Totally insane. Yeah.
Yeah, we love getting into it. We interviewed Ghoul. We made ourselves
Oh,
hood.
yeah, I saw
We
that.
loved it.
I was looking
Oh
at
my
some
God.
thumbnails earlier, yeah.
Yeah. No, but seriously, like some of those bands from Australasia, like Portal, you get Ulcerate. I mean, that's a beautiful part of the world, but my God, that music is so intense. I mean,
Yeah.
they're getting that anger from somewhere for sure.
Yeah. I was jamming out some Ulcerate and Zerine last week, actually, because I hadn't listened to them in a while.
Yeah, I'd love to see Ulcerate. I mean, their drummer is I forget his full name, but he's just insane.
Yeah.
Here's nothing like it.
Well, getting back to you guys, I love the video with all the nature shots. Was that like stock footage or did somebody put those together for you?
That was stock footage put together by Aaron.
The one time the one time we did nature that wasn't stock footage, we got trespassing charges.
Yes.
Oh geez. Okay.
So that was an unfortunate time.
Yep.
Which song was that again?
Drowned off a reaction.
Drown. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
Are we allowed to go back to Mini Haha Falls? I don't know.
I don't know. People bring it up because we live right nearby in the cities, and I'm just like, don't bring that up. I don't want to talk about that ever again.
Yeah.
We went through this phase for a while where we were going to try to do part of the podcast somewhere weird. Like we set up our equipment on top of a jungle gym. We went to our local reservoir and people are just like, we're like, it's fine.
Yeah.
And we even went to the shopping center where I work, like people are coming out. What's going on? I'm like, don't worry about it.
You should start doing
The
like
food.
waffle. Do you guys have? Actually, I don't know if you have Waffle House in Baltimore.
Oh yeah, we do. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. We don't have it here, so I'm never sure like how far south or east, has it. You should just do like a Waffle House a podcast or two.
Yeah.
The guy in the back with a cigarette hanging out of his mouth cooking, and
Yeah.
who's
Get him
vomiting in the
involved.
corner, and
Yep.
that's Waffle House. Fighting in the parking lot. Yeah.
Yeah. They've got stories to tell.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's metal related, but maybe some of it will be.
Mm.
I also love the video you did where you can really see how you take apart the acoustic guitar parts and the electric guitar parts and put them together.
Mhm.
How would you do that live? Because you're doing both.
So I actually don't play any guitar live at all.
Ah.
I just sing. So, but in general, the acoustic guitar parts are backtracked. So
That's the way you got to do it. That's the way
Yeah.
Metallica does it.
they won't.
They're not pulling out the 12 string for Fight Fire with Fire. I mean,
Yeah,
come
they
on,
won't. They
no.
won't. They won't let
They're
me
not
play.
doing that.
They won't
Yeah.
let me play acoustic live, so I won't do it. So I
Okay.
can't do it. Just kidding. They probably would let me play acoustic live. I just never have had really a song to play it on that we've played. To be fair, I probably could have done "Become the Fear," but that's got oud on it too, so I didn't.
Mhm.
I didn't touch it. We played it. We just played it clean electric anyway.
Yeah. Mm.
So you guys also might have different answers for this question, but if you could go on a fantasy tour, with you guys headlining or
Mhm.
opening, could you pick 3 bands either existing now or in the past on this fantasy tour that you would go out on with you guys?
Yeah, like your fantasy ticket. Yeah.
Mm. Do you want to start first, James? Or
Yeah, I mean, absolutely for me, Agalok would probably be the band that I would be opening for if I had to pick. I mean, I would throw Opeth on there too, but like 2 out of the 3, I guess, of my choices would also be like my top 2 or like in my top 3 bands of all time. Led Zeppelin would definitely be like maybe on there too, as weird as that may sound. Robert Plant's probably like my main inspiration for playing music, and I mean I like Page of course too, but like I'm more of the vocalist. I mean a guitar
Mhm.
player too, but not in the same style that Page. I was more influenced by metal for guitar than I was Zeppelin. So, but singing wise and performance wise, Robert Plant all the way. He's still out there killing it, and he's like 79, 80 years old now. So
Got such a great discography. I mean,
Yeah.
since he left Zeppelin, I mean,
He
it's great.
pulled out for our other show, the rock and roll show, this album that he did called Raising Sand, and it's
Yep,
new
I've got that.
country.
Yep, I've got
So
Raising
great,
Sand
yeah.
1 and 2 on vinyl, and
I
I've
haven't
seen
gotten 2 yet, but I want to get 2. Yeah. it's
Okay,
incredible.
it's amazing. My wife and I have seen him and Allison before. Allison Krauss is the
Every
female.
album, he's just like, I'm gonna do whatever the hell I want. It's so
For
great.
real. Yeah, he
It's
just
so
does, he just
great.
picks a different genre every fucking year.
Yep.
I was like,
That's
wow.
great. Man.
Mhm.
Yeah, we do a little duet of part of the song. It's priceless.
It's awesome.
Is this the put you on the spot for an acapella? No,
Yeah.
we won't do that to
Oh
Oh
him.
my
God, we wouldn't
Yeah.
do that to our listeners.
Yeah.
Uh,
It was
Uh,
bad enough we got it off in one take. He
Yeah.
was playing guitar. I'm like, I'm just gonna sing.
yeah.
mhm. I'd say for me, just Linkin Park as a kid, teen, getting into harder rock,
Yes.
metal. Linkin Park was such a formative experience for me to hear, Hybrid Theory and Meteora, and even some of the other albums too. But that was such a introduction to metal. They went different directions sometimes in some of the later stuff. And I did get to see them once on the Meteora tour, at our hockey rink stadium. But it would be just crazy to be able to see them every night.
The XL
Um,
Energy Center.
Yeah, Excel. Yep. Yeah, you know it from the wild hat you
Yeah.
have on.
Yeah.
But yeah, just it's been fun that they've been releasing unreleased songs as some of their like 20th anniversary different boxes. So it's been cool to hear Chester again.
Yeah.
Other than that, I'd say Cynic. I think Traced in Air is probably hands down my favorite album. They just, Focus is just insane in its own regard of just the level of jazz technicality, musicality to it. But there was just something about Traced in Error where I felt they just dialed it back just enough that they could explore just more chord voicings. It wasn't always just super fast alternate pick stuff. So I think they really brought a bit more to the songwriting, even if everyone goes, Focus is the end all be all Cynic album.
Well, if you could take the vote, it's either you like the vocoder or you don't like the vocoder.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and yeah, it just wouldn't be Cynic to me without the vocoder.
Wouldn't be.
I mean that definitely brings, the kind of psychedelic alien kind of influences I think that Paul has. It's just the vocoder was just the perfect, invention for him to use.
Mm-hmm.
Besides that would be a tricky one. It'd be super cool to do Opeth or Meshuggah or Leprous. Just any one of the bands. Opeth definitely for their playing. I think Meshuggah would be, a musicians band of just being blown away every single night. I think Leprous does some crazy stuff as well. So it might be between, those three, I would say.
Three
If
very
I-
different, very different choices. Yeah.
yeah, yep. I'd probably say, I guess, Opeth then, just as long as I could hear some of the earlier stuff.
Right. Don't play all that new shit. Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
Yeah, that's
We used to
getting.
see, a band that came around. They were called From Ashes to New. They're kind of like Linkin Park meets Eminem. They have two lead guys, and one of them sings and one of them raps, and they were really quite good. They were very Linkin Park-esque,
Yeah, it was very
adjacent.
Interesting, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
You're starting to see a lot of the newer bands that are kind of like the children of Linkin Park,
Yeah.
coming
Yeah.
through.
Mm.
Cool.
Yeah.
I was a child of Linkin Park too, to be fair. That was like the first time I heard screaming was in probably
Yeah.
from Hybrid Theory when I was in like 5th grade when it came out.
I just always love those random crossovers of metal into different shows. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I finally got around to watching The Sopranos recently, which I knew I should have done a long time ago, but seeing like an Ulver poster in the
Oh,
in it
damn.
in his room just cracked me up. It was just so funny.
Yeah.
Um,
Pre Radiohead Oliver, right? Like the early Oliver.
yeah, they had I think it was the Nottin's Madrigal,
Oh
I want to
God.
say.
See, that's an album that's so funny because that's an album that I have always thought was so fantastic. And a lot of metalheads are like, oh, it sounds like two stations at once. I'm like, well, it is in two different channels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me double check what that was in. Yeah, my funny
The
story with
Woman of
that.
Wolves, that's Natchez Madrigal. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually I've got a pretty funny shirt. I wish I had it with me up here right now, but it's like a pupper version of it. So, it's kind of like vaporwave pupper kind of
Okay, yeah.
edit of that as a shirt. So it's just really cute instead of like, ooh, scary werewolves, and that one
Yeah.
just always cracks me up. But yeah, I mean, my experience, I've heard that album a lot here and there, but I think my favorite experience with that album was I do photography as well, and I was doing band promos with a band, and they were driving. I hopped in and we drove to the location, but one of the guys took that album, which is already just very treble heavy,
Oh, yeah.
nothing else. And he put it on and he turned off the bass and the mids in the car. And we just
It's like a
listened to that.
tattoo needle in your ear, basically.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. We listened to it for like 15 minutes on the way to the shoot, and it cracked. Yeah, it just cracked me up. It was too good.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, early Oliver.
So what's coming up next for you guys? We got Maryland Death Fest coming up here. Any
Hmm.
chance of getting you out to a big festival?
We would
Probably
love
not.
to, but probably not. Yeah.
Yeah, probably not
recent-
probably not this year, but next year we'll probably be out there playing stuff. There's been a few things coming up with people's health and otherwise too that this year that is kind of kept it off the books for the year, and it's okay. I mean, because we're releasing these albums and we have a buttload more material that we're trying to kind of formalize into.
Mhm.
We're not sure 100% if there'll be multiple EPs, if we'll do more LPs quicker than 4 years. I mean, this album that like Reclamation's been done for a year at this point, basically, but regardless, I mean, it still takes like a year to get everything out. So hopefully we can get another album out sooner and maybe in the next year and a half so that we can tour on 3 albums at once this time next time.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is Kelsey doing better? Has he recovered?
He's I mean, like he's a functional adult again, but he still has
Okay.
some like post-op stuff that he's going through this month. He had like a pretty bad staph infection. And no idea how he ended up getting it, but that's how he ended up getting hospitalized for about 2 months last year. He was hospitalized pretty much the end of March through the end of May last year. So he's still got to deal with a little bit of stuff that may require another surgery or two this year, which is kind of partially why we're holding off, because we're not a big band. Like when we go out and play, we want to play with our friends. So if like it's not the right time for some people to go out, then like we're just not going to do it unless it's like a last second emergency and we have already committed and it's weeks away kind of thing and we just have to have a fill-in. We don't want to do fill-ins. So
No.
Understand.
I agree. Well, we hope to see you out this way eventually.
yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
like I said, my family's all out there. My parents are in West Virginia and one of my sisters is in Maryland, then two are in DC. So try to go out there.
That's great. I mean, keep doing what you're doing. I mean, we love the pace of the releases, the artwork.
And
Just keep doing what you're doing.
done. That is done.
Yeah, it's
Thank you.
incredible.
This is the Snaggletooth Extreme Metal Podcast.